It breaks my heart. I am so proud of the girls. There are a handful of girls now who are suing their state's attorney general and the high school sports governing body that has allowed this to happen because of their discriminatory policies that exclude women from the women's category. Cannot believe this is happening.
Yeah, I have never seen an organization more committed to self-imploding than the WNBA. A few weeks ago, I made this video highlighting how it appears Brittney Griner said bleep white girl after fouling out in a game against Indiana Fever, the team that Caitlin Clark plays for. Some people like Jamel Hill, former ESPN host, says that no, she didn't say bleep white girl. She says bleep whack call, to which she then went on to call me a grifter for even pointing this out, but besides the point. You can watch and make up your own mind as to what it appears
Brittney Griner and the WNBA as a whole just received a nuclear bomb from Riley Gaines. Following the dismissal of Griner's contentious remarks against Caitlin Clark, the former Olympic swimmer said what everyone was thinking. The league is now frantically trying to contain the damage since she did not hold back. Do you believe Riley Gaines should have avoided getting involved in basketball controversy, or was she correct to point out Brittney Griner and the WNBA's blatant double standards? It is the most self-destructive organization the WNBA has ever seen. A video of Brittney Griner allegedly making some very offensive remarks about Caitlin Clark after fouling out in a game against the Indiana Fever emerged a few weeks ago. The timing and body language contradict the claims made by some supporters that Griner was discussing the referee's decision. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 85% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So, did you subscribe already? Great. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to the video.
Fox News. I ain't never seen this lady a day in my life. Why'd y'all hire this woman?
The USA basketball chair actually said it would be irresponsible to put Caitlin Clark on the U.S. women's Olympic basketball team, all while putting Brittney Griner on the team. I think with the extreme controversy that she brings.
Let me jump in, Riley, because you say it a lot there. I'm not sure what you mean by the controversy that Brittney Griner brings to the game. I mean, that's kind of not fair to say without explanation.
Well, I mean, I think given everything that happened overseas, given that she was put in jail, I mean, the controversy is certainly there, whether we want it there or not.
Not her fault and wrongly accused. Let's be fair. That's Riley. I like you a lot too. That's not right. She was wrongfully accused. That is not fair to bring that up. So we're gonna delete that. Okay, let's you and I continue.
She literally tried to tell Riley Gaines that Brittney Griner was unlawfully detained. What are you saying, Fox? Get this lady off y'all show.
Riley Gaines was not going to overlook this. Gaines took the initiative and issued a reality check that has the whole league trembling in their boots when the mainstream sports media began performing backflips in an attempt to spin the story. Gaines is coming from a place of moral authority that is hard to ignore, which is what makes this scenario so volatile. This person has personally dealt with unjust treatment in sports. She is the swimmer who had the guts to speak out while others remained mute about having to race against biological guys in women's championships. Gaines is aware of what it is like to face criticism for speaking unpleasant facts. Additionally, the mainstream sports media has demonized her for advocating for justice and protecting women's sports.
Thursday night, Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played. Indiana Fever is where Caitlin Clark plays. Atlanta Dream is where Brittney Griner plays. Now you tell me what it looks like Brittney Griner is saying here.
For the tic-tac fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
For a little bit of context, this was in the fourth quarter after Brittney Griner fouled out against Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever would go on to win by 5. Now I'm going to tell you what I think she said. Let's play it back. Looks to me like she is saying trash and then calling Caitlin Clark a bleep white girl. Just a reminder, this is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white. It's because she's a good player. It's because she's the best player. Now, imagine if Caitlin Clark said the inverse of this. It would be reprehensible, condemned, and understandably so. You've got all of these individual players. You have sports commentators, people like Ryan Clark, who constantly tout of the racial tensions that exist in the league when in reality, they are the ones perpetuating and amplifying these racial tensions with their anti-white hatred for Caitlin Clark.
Gaines observed the trend right away when she saw the WNBA shielding certain players while ignoring others. She intervened at the ideal moment, after the WNBA's time-consuming and resource-intensive investigation into wholly untrue allegations made against Caitlin Clark supporters. Actual disputes captured on camera. It is impossible to exaggerate how brilliant Gaines's reaction was. With surgical precision, she completely destroyed Griner on social media. She did more than just point out the apparent remarks. She reminded everyone of the background that adds to the absurdity of the whole affair. In order to retrieve Griner from Russia, the U.S. government really exchanged a deadly weapons dealer, and here is how she makes up for that sacrifice. Victor Bout's involvement in the global armaments trade earned him the moniker, Merchant of Death. The United States swapped this guy for Brittney Griner because he contributed to the escalation of hostilities worldwide. It is somewhat shocking to think that someone who benefited from that kind of support would then turn around and disparage another American athlete. Gaines's observation that it would be awful to imagine the positions reversed is spot on. What may have happened if Caitlin Clark had been seen on camera making similar remarks about Brittney Griner? The media would be demanding her execution. She would be losing sponsors all over the place. She would likely face an indefinite suspension from the WNBA. We cannot really determine what Griner said about the game, however, since it is Griner who makes the remarks and Clark who receives them. Suddenly, everyone wants to participate. Even casual onlookers are beginning to recognize how blatant the double standard is. The way Gaines has linked this event to the larger issues facing the WNBA is quite clever. She is not criticizing a single player for a little period of time. She is revealing a whole corporate culture that puts preserving certain narratives ahead of fundamental justice and responsibility.
Not certain what Griner says. There is one way to find out. Ask Brittney Griner. However, no one has done that except for Outkick. It's been over 2 weeks since Griner said this. Instead, the WNBA was investigating a bogus race hoax made up by Angel Reese about Indiana Fever fans. And I say bogus because they found no evidence that supports Angel Reese's claims. So we at Outkick applied for media credentials to cover Brittney Griner's team, the Atlanta Dreams, game on June 6th. To which, shocker, they denied us. We've never had trouble getting media credentials with any professional sports league in the past, but wouldn't you know, now they suddenly have very limited space, which is total baloney. They just want to suppress any sort of uncomfortable inquiries from media. Regardless, we at Outkick are going to keep asking the tough questions, the questions that people want the answer to. And if you do call yourself a reporter or a journalist from an outlet like ESPN or any other sports outlet for that matter, and you have access to these settings and you're not asking those questions, you're really no reporter or journalist at all, at least not one.
The WNBA rejected Outkick's request for media credentials so they could question Griner directly about the remarks. Riley Gaines really let them have it at that point. She noted that, apart from Outkick, no one has really attempted to get answers from Griner herself. The WNBA prevents access to the facts, while everyone else in the sports media is happy to conjecture and provide justifications. The WNBA's credibility is severely damaged by the fact that Outkick was refused media credentials for attempting to pose valid questions on the event. This is purportedly a professional sports league that relies on fan interaction and media attention. However, the league excludes journalists who attempt to carry out their duties and pose simple inquiries. Gaines' observation on the situation's hypocrisy effectively brought this to light. The WNBA will look into false phantom accusations made against followers of Caitlin Clark. They will make a huge show of taking unfounded accusations seriously, make comments, and start investigations. However, they're suddenly too busy to look into it when there is real video proof of one of their players perhaps making offensive remarks against their greatest star. With one stunning comment, Gaines completely ruined the WNBA's credibility in an interview with Fox News. The WNBA is the most self-destructive organization I have ever seen. She went on to explain why the league's actions are so harmful and hypocritical.
Good morning, Brittney. I'm Bill Roden from ESPN and Skating. It's really great to see you. It's good to know the prayers have been answered. The question, you've always represented so much throughout your entire career about access and, being able to do stuff. And I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but there are a number of states who are aggressively moving to prevent transgender athletes playing. And I was wondering, again, I hate to put one more thing on your plate, but in terms of on your radar, where is that? You're going to have a tremendous platform, but where is that going to be on your radar in terms of advocating for, athletes, all athletes, transgender athletes to be able to play?
Oh, I mean that ranks high on the list of things that I'll be fighting for and speaking up against. Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are or like it's just all eyes on them. So I think it's a crime, honestly, to separate someone for any reason. So I definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed for sure.
Gaines's intervention also comes at the ideal moment. This occurred immediately after the WNBA's expenditure of time and funds looking into wholly untrue allegations made against supporters of Caitlin Clark. Thus, we have a league that will organize to look into fictitious disputes but will not deal with actual ones that are captured on camera. Gaines' exposure of ESPN's G. Hill's attempt to cover up Griner was much more humiliating for the WNBA. According to Hill, Griner stated something completely different from what many people believe she said. However, as Gaines pointed out, you may watch and decide what Brittney Griner seems to be saying. That is the ideal reaction to these gaslighting techniques. Do not share anything you see and hear with others. Allow them to see the video and make their own decisions. Prominent media personalities' attempts to misrepresent clear audio and video evidence demonstrate how eager they are to preserve certain narratives. The fact that it would be so simple for the WNBA to handle this appropriately adds to the absurdity of the whole issue. All they need to do is hold everyone to the same standards. They should look into verified allegations against players if they're going to go into unverified allegations against supporters. If they're going to provide media access to some stories, they need to do so for all valid journalistic questions. But rather than adopting that direct strategy, they have put themselves in a position where everyone can see how hypocritical they are. And Riley Gaines just made it impossible for anybody to ignore it by turning up the spotlight.
A lot of people are talking about the Olympics, but not for the right reasons. So let me shed some light into a story that not too many people are talking about. I'm sure a majority of you know who Riley Gaines is and who is Brittney Griner. So Riley Gaines laid into Brittney Griner for kneeling during the national anthem. You don't have to sing or anything, but you need to show some respect for the country that saved you from a Russian gulag. True. If y'all forgot, Brittney Griner was a 32-year-old that was arrested in Moscow on February 17, accused of entering Russia with a vape cartridge containing cannabis oil, which is illegal in Russia. She was sentenced to 9 years in Russian labor. Obviously, this was a whole political thing. This was immediately after Russia invaded Ukraine. However, America fought for her and got her back in a one-on-one exchange with another prisoner. But that prisoner is one of the biggest arms dealers ever, Victor Bout. So you bring something illegal to a country, that country arrests you, and then America does everything to try and get you back here just for you to kneel during the national anthem? That's the...
Gaines's participation is all the more significant given the larger backdrop of this debate. The WNBA's greatest development in decades has been Caitlin Clark. More than any other player in history, she has packed stadiums around the nation, attracted millions of new fans to the sport, and raised awareness of women's basketball. However, it seems that the league is more concerned with pleasing players who dislike her success than it is with safeguarding and honoring its greatest star. They are prepared to look into fictitious disputes that may harm Clark's reputation while disregarding actual disputes that could harm other players. Riley Gaines is specifically criticizing this outdated strategy. She is pointing out that the WNBA deliberately works against its own interests, which makes them dedicated to self-imploding. They have a generational talent that has the potential to propel the game to new heights, but they are more focused in shielding the emotions of players who find her success intolerable. Additionally, Gaines recognizes something that the WNBA seems to have overlooked. Fans will not put up with blatant injustice for too long. If they believe the league is treating their favorite player unjustly, the new fans that Caitlin Clark has brought to women's basketball will not remain around. The swimmer has a distinct viewpoint on these matters because of her upbringing. She has seen how political correctness or story protection may lead sports organizations to betray their own athletes. She has personally seen what it is like to be marginalized for advocating for fundamental justice. She recognizes the trend and is not scared to call it out when she witnesses the WNBA acting in a similar manner with Caitlin Clark. This is precisely what took place, and the league's reaction has only strengthened her argument. Outkick's rejection of media credentials is especially instructive since it reveals the WNBA's approach to handling awkward questions. Rather of confronting problems head-on, they instead attempt to keep people from inquiring about them. This tactic may be effective in the short run, but it will undoubtedly backfire in the long run. By drawing global attention to the WNBA's selective enforcement and media manipulation, Riley Gaines has expedited that deadline. As everyone is aware, the league turned away reporters who wanted to legitimately inquire about a contentious event involving one of its players. Gaines's portrayal of the WNBA as a self-destructive institution may be the most harmful aspect of her critique. It is more than simply an insult. It perfectly captures what we are seeing. Caitlin Clark's popularity presents the league with a huge chance, but they are wasting it by stirring up needless controversy and displaying blatant partiality. Gaines's method works especially well since she links this particular instance to more general behavioral tendencies. She is not only grumbling about a single video or someone who is not given a media accreditation. She is revealing a structural issue with the WNBA's operations. The apparent and outrageous nature of the WNBA's actions is shown by the fact that Gaines felt forced to get engaged in basketball drama. This person has no special interest in basketball politics. She is a swimmer who has gained notoriety as a supporter of sports, equity in general. However, she will not remain quiet if she witnesses an organization using the same narrative protection and selective enforcement that she has opposed in her own sport. Thankfully, the mainstream sports media was not going to hold the WNBA responsible. The video proof of Gurrier's remarks is self-evident. However, what really reveals the league's objectives is how they responded to that proof. They could have handled the matter openly, conducted an impartial investigation, and moved on. Rather, they decided to defend a nonsensical story by circling the wagons. Riley Gaines just brought that leadership shortcoming to light. The whole sports world is now keeping an eye on the WNBA's response. They have two options. Either they take this criticism to heart and begin using consistent standards, or they intensify their hypocrisy and demonstrate Gaines's claim that they are dedicated to self-destruction. Smart money believes that they will choose the later option based on their past performance. But at least now, everyone will understand precisely what they are doing and why it is bad, thanks to Riley Gaines. The way this whole situation exposes the WNBA's misguided objectives is its most significant feature. They are more focused on defending players who seem intent on undermining Caitlin Clark's success than they are on leveraging the tremendous popularity she has brought to their sport. Even though Clark is just in her second season as a professional, she has already completely changed the women's basketball scene. However, several members of the league seem to dislike this change rather than welcome it. Furthermore, it seems that the WNBA's management is more concerned with handling such grievances than safeguarding its most important asset. Riley Gaines has grown skilled at spotting and pointing out precisely this kind of organizational disorder. She has seen how organizations may lose sight of their fundamental purpose due to the influence of certain ideas. The WNBA's goal should be to encourage female players and advance women's basketball. However, the league is dramatically failing in that purpose when they look into fictitious issues while ignoring genuine ones, refuse media access to journalists who have valid concerns, and neglect to handle evident misbehavior by its own players. Gaines's intervention is beautiful because it has made everyone face these inconsistencies. The WNBA can no longer pretend that their blatant double standards and selective enforcement are anything other than what they are because of her. A betrayal of the values they say they support. The league must now make a decision. They have two options. Either they accept these issues and try to resolve them, or they keep going down the road of organizational self-destruction that Gaines has so precisely pointed out. It is obvious where they're going based on their answers so far. However, the public is now able to see that decision because of Riley Gaines. The former Olympic swimmer has made it impossible to conceal or justify the WNBA's duplicity. Even if the league is too obstinate to accept it, she has given them a much-needed reality check. This controversy's wider ramifications go far beyond basketball. It is a perfect illustration of how institutions may behave against their own interests due to institutional capture. Caitlin Clark's popularity presents the WNBA with a once-in-a-generation chance, but they are wasting it to please internal groups who seem more interested in ideology than achievement. Riley Gaines has seen this trend in her own sport before, and she will not remain silent and let it to recur. Her moral authority on these matters makes her judgment hard to ignore, and her bravery in pointing out this dysfunction was precisely what the situation needed. The WNBA's attempt to stifle inquiries on the Griner incident further strengthens Gaines's argument. Organizations often attempt to restrict responsibility and control information because they are aware that they are unable to justify their conduct. Gaines has made them face that fact, and their reaction has further strengthened her conclusion. Riley Gaines made sure everyone could see the WNBA's apparent commitment to self-imploding in real time. The WNBA sorely needed a reality check, and Riley Gaines just gave it. Her courageous criticism of Brittney Griner and the league's unfair practices has revealed the corruption that everyone could see, but no one would confront. How do you feel about this volatile situation? Tell me in the comments section below. For more truth bombs, hit the like button and subscribe.